call this meeting to order, the Tahoe Truckee Sanitation Agency for July 10th, 2019 at 9 a.m. First, let's have a pledge of allegiance. Director Cox, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure will. Hey, Mike, you remember the words?
I do. You have to. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks.
Okay, let the record reflect that the whole board is here and present. Let's go on to public comment. Any person to wish to address the board on actions on items not listed on the agenda elsewhere may do so at this time. So we'll open the public comment section. Okay, hearing no public comment, we'll close the public comment session. And we'll go to item 3, professional achievement awards and anniversaries.
Good morning, President Lewis and members of the board. Vicki Lufrano, Human Resources Administrator. And I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of employees, one for an anniversary and one for safety suggestions. If you could please stand so that the board can recognize you. Paul Schaus, IME supervisor, and he is having his 1-year work anniversary. Congratulations, good job. And Chewy Sarate for his safety suggestion for the second quarter of 2019. He had 3 safety suggestions, which were to install a guardrail and mid-rail on platform for the lime slurry tank. Second is to close the guardrail gap and raise the height on the section of guardrail on top of the lime silo. And the third one, add signage or remove the natural gas propane pipes that terminate above grade on the road side of the warehouse. So thank you for your suggestions, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item of business is consent calendar. Do we have any, we have a motion for approval or for discussion?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, Director Northrup makes a motion, Director Cox seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, then we go to item 5, and let's go right to item 6 since everybody's here for that. Discussion and update of classification and compensation study. Who's the lead?
I'll take it.
Okay.
We are concluding our classification and compensation study. We have Ms. Shelley Anderson from Bryce Consulting here to provide an update to the board of directors. What you have in your packet here is a slide presentation that she'll be addressing. A lot of the data for the comparable agencies, as well as the job descriptions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Shelley to address the board.
Good morning. That's okay. Oh, got it. Oh, great. I could be there. Okay.
Also, after Shelley's presentation, and when we get into the items that the employees would like to make comment to us regarding any of these items, please come up, address your name, and address the board at the podium, okay? When we get there.
So what I wanted to do this morning was just give you a status update on where we are and then also walk you through the draft data. So in terms of the classification study, we've essentially finished the classification study. So what occurred since the last time I was here is that we, as you recall, we had provided the employees with the draft copies of their job descriptions and their recommendations, and they were looking at that. They received them just a few days before the last board meeting. So we provided them with a period of time to review that and submit their comments. I went through all of those comments. There were a handful of employees that came back up with and met with because they had more significant concerns. And then we've since incorporated the comments that they provided that I felt were appropriate, and pretty much the majority of the comments were incorporated in the job descriptions. There were a few that were not. And then we made our final recommendations in terms of what the appropriate title is, what the appropriate classification is, and we've now finalized those job descriptions, so you have those in front of you. So that process has been finalized. And we did also conduct the FLSA analysis to determine which positions were exempt or non-exempt from overtime. Those are all indicated on each job description. In terms of the compensation study, we've now have all of the data collected. We've ran it in the various scenarios that the board asked us to. We have 2 tiers for each scenario, so it's a lot of data. So we have our CalPERS Classic employees and then the PEPRA employees. And then we ran the data with the agencies that I recommended, the agencies that are combined with my recommendations plus the suggestions for the employees, and then just the member agencies for TTSA. So you have a lot of different versions to stare at. So what we're going to be asking today is that the board give some direction on which set of agencies you want us to use and which labor market position you want us to use. And so what I have is a spreadsheet. That you have in front of you. And the spreadsheet provides
How did you get there?
the data in a variety of ways. So what I did is I compared, and the reason we're giving it to you is because it's a little hard to read on this screen. And so what you have is all of our survey classes, and we have the labor market median in the top. Sorry, I'll wait till everybody has the sheet.
I don't.
You don't hear.
Just to be clear, we're referring to the total compensation summary sheet.
Correct. And if I tried to fit it into the PowerPoint, it'd be microscopic, so that's why
Right.
we give it to you separately. So we were asked to calculate the median and the mean. So the top set of rows is the labor market median. So that just tells you where the 50th percentile is of all those survey agencies. What's that middle number? And so what we've done is this is kind of a summary of total compensation, because that's what we were asked to do, was a total compensation study. And it gives you all of those different scenarios. So the first column, with that first blue line at the top, is all of your survey classifications with the new titles that we've recommended. And what the first 2 columns is the agencies that I've recommended for the median. So it tells you what the labor market median is, and then the percentage you are from that. For the classic tier, the next 2 columns, which are shaded, is the same, but for the PEPRA tier. Then the next 2 columns over are classic again, but it's the list I recommended combined with the suggestions of the employees. And then the next shaded column over is the PEPRA tier for that. And then the last set of columns just is the member agencies. So again, the member agencies for classic and the member agencies for PEPRA. And then below the blue line is the labor market mean. So it's the exact same information, but with a different statistic calculated. So it tells you, depending on which scenario you want to pick, it's telling you how far you are from the market on total compensation. Whether you're using the mean or the median, whether you're using the agencies I recommended, or you're using classic tier or PEPRA, whether you're using the combined list, classic and PEPRA, or whether you're just using the member agencies, classic and PEPRA. My personal recommendation is to focus on the classic tier, because that is where the bulk of public employees in California still fall. I think at some point that the pendulum will switch, but it hasn't quite yet. And so there still are benefits that employees in the classic tier are receiving that PEPRA employees cannot receive. And those benefits are costly if an employer is still paying the employee share of PERS. Obviously, the retirement costs to the agency is much higher for the classic tier than they are for the PEPRA employees. So that's just my recommendation, but which group of agencies you use will be up to you, to the board.
I've got I'm not sure if this is a good time for a question or if I should wait.
No, go for it.
Okay. So there's a lot of data here. And I think we're the ones that asked for it, so thank you.
Correct.
The question I've got between Pepra and Classic, so there's, when you boil all this down, I'm looking at the bottom line averages
Yeah.
with the percentages.
Mhm.
So one thing I noticed, so I'm just looking at what I'll call the Bryce agencies, the comparison of the median
Mhm.
pay, it's pretty similar
Mhm.
for positions as you go down through there. But then the percentages vary significantly, and I think the reason for that is that because TTSA pays the employee's share of PERS,
Mhm.
for any of those agencies that you surveyed where the agency did not pay the employee's share of PERS, that did not show up as part of the total compensation for that comparable agency, but it is part of the total compensation for TTSA. Is that?
That's correct. So
Is that
for
what's going on
example, for TTSA, for your classic employees, you're paying 8% of the employee's share of retirement. So you're
Okay.
paying the full share, the full cost of the employee share. But then you have someone like the city of Placerville, they're not paying any of it. So yours is showing up as an 8% contribution that's being calculated into that total compensation number. Theirs is a 0, because they're not paying any of it, the employee's paying all of it. You know, and then you have Roseville that pays 6.197. So it's mixed. I mean, most public employees have stopped paying the employee share of retirement, even for their classic employees. But for your group of agencies, obviously you guys are paying the full share. Roseville's paying almost all of it. We have a couple that are paying less than 0.5%. Truckee Donner is paying less than 2%. Truckee Sanitary District is paying all of it. So your labor market is a little bit different in that you still have about half of your agencies that are paying a portion of it, if not all of it. But yeah, you're right. Yours is going to look greater than several of these agencies because it is. You're paying 8% where the others are not.
So, if I'm understanding the information correctly, when you boil it all down to the bottom line, it says on average across the survey agencies, I'm just looking at the quote-unquote Bryce agencies, it says that the TTSA is about 18.8% above the median for classic employees, but only 14.2% above the median for Pepra employees, and that the difference is that we're not paying Pepra employees PERS shares because it's prohibited by the state.
Correct.
But we are paying classic employees PERS share. And so the classic employees, effectively, their total compensation is greater than Pepra employees.
Yes. you're
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And we do have a couple organizations, and so, you're not going to see like it's an exact 8% swing from one of those to the other, because
Right.
we do have a few that are paying it like you do. But we do have a couple agencies that for their Pepper employees, they're paying a greater share of deferred compensation. So for them, that would be in there for their Pepper, but not for their Classic. It's not equivalent to the 8%. We even have a couple that their salaries are actually a little bit higher for their Pepper employees than their Classic. Because I think what they're trying to do in effect is make their compensation packages as equivalent as they can for their Classic and their Pepper. And so they've tinkered with some of the benefits for the Pepper employees to try to give them a little bit more,
I see.
knowing they can't touch the retirement.
Understood. Okay.
So,
Good,
Thanks.
go ahead.
well, basically across the board, our employees are better paid than any of these other agencies, basically.
If we were to take all of the classifications that we surveyed and take the percentage that you're above or below, that would be true. But we certainly, if you look at it on a classification by classification basis, some are further over market than others. So, I mean, we can't say that all of them are 18% over market because we have some that are not. But yes,
No, but they're
You
all
can
a
make-
percentage over the general market.
correct. If we look at my agencies
Yeah.
that I recommended, if we pull in some of those Bay Area agencies, that changes a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Want to keep, any other questions at this point? Want to keep going?
Keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Sorry, last one. I'm just going to go back to the presentation. Okay. So one of the things, so the next step is I have to, if you choose, I need to build you recommendations in terms of what does all of this mean and what would the salary ranges be for these classifications. So in order to do that, I need some direction on which labor market to use. Do we use the one that I recommended? Do you want to use the combined one that includes employees' feedback? We have the member one, but we have very little data from that, so I would imagine that wouldn't be one that you would want to use. And then which statistic do we use? Do we use the labor market median? Do we use the mean? Do we use something else? And so I am looking for direction from you, because those are policy decisions, so that then I can go back and say, okay, we're gonna use this labor market, we're gonna use this statistic. If we do that, this is what your ranges should look like based on that direction. And so that's the next step, and that was the goal, is to try to bring that back in August, and then that would finalize the study. But without that direction, you'd end up with 8 different sets of recommendations, which I'm not sure you want to have. And so that's the next step, is to develop those recommendations. And the other thing is your salary ranges are a little bit inconsistent. You have some salary ranges, so if you look at your salary schedule, you know, it'll list the classifications, and here, this classification is assigned this range, and here's all the steps. You have some that have 5 steps. You have some that have 7 steps. You have some that have 16% between the minimum and the maximum. You have some classifications that have 21% between the minimum and the maximum. So there's not a lot of consistency, and it's not even like it's broken up between management and non-management. It's just kind of all over the place. So my recommendation is, as we go and build these salary recommendations, is that we create some consistency. And so what I'm recommending is that we have 6 steps. If we have 5% between each step, it's a 25% range, which is pretty consistent with public agencies. It also gives a little bit more room for you to reward people and move them through the ranges than 16%. People would top out pretty early at 16%. So that's the other thing that I was recommending. And so we would come back in August with the recommended salary ranges based on whichever labor market agencies you want, whichever statistic you want. And then if you're okay with me building it based on those 6 steps to kind of make it more consistent. And then we would come back in August.
Yes, the salary ranges are the biggest difference in these statistics that I saw that you had on here. So getting those adjusted properly, you know, for the expectations of that job.
Right.
So, any other comment? You want to keep going, or?
I'm waiting for you.
That's it, okay. Did the employee, did anybody want to make comment as far as if you had, first of all, does everybody feel they had adequate time to take a look at everything as far as their job descriptions and things like that? 'Cause that's important. I'm looking and seeing a few nods, so I guess it is. So, you know, you had the feedback from the information that Shelley gave you as far as each classification and compensation. You know, that's good. Blake, did you have a question to raise?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tremendous amount of data, and we've had, you know, less than a week to look at it, and so I'm still in the process of digesting it, and it's, you know, there's a lot to the data. There's some strange, you know, there's weird things you find, certain agencies that have, you know, what seem to be outlandish healthcare costs that skew data, and some that have very low healthcare costs that make our costs seem higher, and so, you know, it's I'm still trying to digest the data, you know, so I guess what I'm saying is, I think, you know, this is an important step. The
Right.
staff is out there, they're looking at the board, making a
Right.
determination on their take-home pay as well as their benefit package, and for us to, you know, jump into a determination quickly with this much data is
Overall,
challenging, and so
yeah.
I you know, I think that we need to give this the proper level of deliberation it deserves, given the importance of the outcome of this. This isn't kind of a theoretical discussion. This has, you know, you know,
Ramifications.
strong ramifications, you know, money going into pockets and all that stuff. Also, I mean, so to begin with, for myself, I'm hesitant to make any determination at this point. I'd like to have more time to look at this and possibly, you know, recommend that the board appoint an ad hoc committee maybe to work with staff to dig into this and try and understand it some more. I mean, it's one thing if we all individually go out, but there may be some questions, and then, you know, we haven't talked about these things, but with some of these positions that are so high above what appears the market rate, that even, you know, and I think it's the board's intention, certainly mine, to use this data to produce a wage scale and a compensation and benefit package that, you know, rewards the employees and you know, gives the management the ability to recruit and retain employees. And there's no question we want to, you know, have a good system, but even with that, there appears to be some staffs that are so high that, you know, how do you deal with that if, you know, you still give you guys a high percentile ranking position? There may be some that are above that, and we haven't talked about how that's addressed. You know,
At the same time, the ones
there's
below it,
there's internal alignment things, and we haven't, you know, is that, when you go back for recommendations, I mean, obviously you have to work with management, but it seems like that's also maybe something that an ad hoc committee could be involved in. Or I don't know how that usually works, you know, I mean, if we throw out, you know, we said 75th percentile of the entire complete set of comparator agencies, do you just run that calculation, you know, for Classic, and that's the top salary for all of them, and you just drop back 5%? And, you know, how do people, there's a lot of
Sure.
details in there that, you know, to me are still missing, and I don't understand the ramifications of us making a decision.
Yeah, so, you know, when we build the recommendations, we're gonna take into consideration the market data that we collected and whatever the board directs us to do in terms of which group of agencies in the statistic. But there will be some internal alignment decisions that will have to be made. I mean, we do have some classifications that we don't have enough data for, you know, and so we have to come up with a recommendation. We may have classifications where we look at the market data and it doesn't make sense for your organization for different reasons, whether it creates compaction with the next level above or below. And so we have to adjust for that. So the market data is gonna give us the starting point, but we have to fine tune it to make it work for your organization. And so part of the recommendations is that I'll be making those recommendations and reviewing it with the general manager in terms of, okay, we don't have enough data here. This is what I would recommend, how we set the salary for this, or, you know, we have levels within series. Those are pretty straightforward. It's usually 10% between levels, those types of things. But we have a couple cases where, you know, the market data is giving us a good indication, but we have market data, but we still have some things about your classification that might be a little bit different, that we can't just say, hey, we're gonna set it right at this. We're gonna use that as an indicator, but we need to do something slightly different. So what you would get back once we come up with those recommendations is a spreadsheet that'll tell you, this is what the market data was, this is what we're recommending for the maximum salary, here's the percentage difference between what your current max is and your new max, and this is how we came up with it. We set it to the market, or we set it some other way, and this is how. And so that would all be in the recommendations, is how we came up with that recommendation.
I have a question.
Sure.
We're not gonna be lowering salaries, right?
So typically what happens in public agencies is that if you have a classification that is over market, I've never seen a board or a council lower salaries for existing employees.
Right.
Typically, I mean, you have this, however it happened, you have said, we're gonna pay you this, and people have bought houses and sent their kids to college, and they have a
You can't take
lifestyle
away
based on what they
something.
make.
That's what I'm saying. I was just trying
Correct.
to make sure of that. because
Exactly.
Employee retention is
Absolutely.
important.
Right. So typically what happens is if they're over market, their salary range would be frozen, so they wouldn't continue to receive cost of living increases, but they're gonna keep their salary until the market catches up. But anyone new brought into that classification would be brought in, so you hire a brand new employee, you bring them in at the new range that we recommended, so that you're not overpaying brand new employees. that you're not taking money away from existing employees. You just may not give them the cost of living adjustments because they're already so far over market. But that's a board decision.
Yep.
I mean, that is 100% a board decision, how you deal with it. That's just typically how it's handled.
Thank you.
You know, I'm looking at the information, I mean, just on a per view basis as far as the, you know, the median, the mean, and how what we pay our employees locally, what the employees are paid off the hill. We've always kept the standard here at TTSA of paying our employees very well and above what the local rate is, because they are doing a very complex, special job for us here. And it sort of reflects, I believe it reflects that in what you've shown us here. So, you know, I just want to make that comment. You know, we're not here to equalize the payment between other member districts in our area, because these people are doing different specialized jobs.
You know, and that's where the labor market position comes in, you know. What do you want to be as an employer? Do you want to be at the middle, or do you expect more and you want to be higher? And that's a policy decision.
Okay, Director Cox.
Shelley, you said very early in your presentation that you reached out to the employees for their input
On the classification, on the job description.
on the job description and classification part, but you didn't get any feedback on the rate of pay?
No, because I collected and analyzed the data and got all of that from the agencies. So that was my job to do. On the job descriptions, they're the ones that do their jobs, so they have to give me the information on their job descriptions in order for me to write job descriptions.
Okay, so none of the concerns from the employees were based on compensation. It was strictly a job description survey.
Correct. We didn't have the data ready yet, so and we were focused on the classification. So their comments were 100% focused on the job descriptions and the classifications. They did not have the data in order to make comments based on the data. They did not have it. So it was just on what was in the job descriptions. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
So, I mean, you brought up the point that decision to keep employees, not lower employee salaries, that's a board decision. You know, again, it's pretty complex. There's probably a number of board decisions that we have to make, but what I saw in the summary for this was simply select your market group that you're comparing it to and select a percentile. But these issues with Y rating or keeping salaries, is there a list of other kind of board decisions that you're going to be looking for that, you know, you need us to be deliberating on so that we
I don't
know?
think so. You know, the couple big ones are the labor market agencies, the statistic we compare to, but then it's the implementation of it. You know, typically what, you know, could be a board decision because it's a financial impact is if you had a bunch of classifications that were way below market, you may not be able to afford to bring them all up at once, so you might have to phase it in. You kind of have the opposite where you have more classifications that are over market, so you're going to have to, you know, deal with and recommend how you want to handle that. You know, it's important to know that even if you're below market, that doesn't necessarily mean that that employee sees, you know, if you were 10% below market, that employee is not going to see an immediate 10% increase. As long as their current salary falls within the new range, they would stay there. It just gives them more room to move up. But we don't have that, so the issue that you're going to have to grapple with is what do you do with these classifications that are over market? And that's just typically what happens.
Director Cox.
Shelley, I'm a little bit concerned when you said that some of the employees in the survey that are compensated at a higher percentile. I'm a little bit concerned when you make a comment that a lot of the agencies that you survey freeze their compensation until it's caught up. I don't like that. I don't like that idea, because I think if it was me, it would take away my incentive to be a performer. And I know that there's a considerable amount of our classifications that are paid over and above the median percentile. How can you sit back and tell an employee that your wages are going to be frozen until you catch up with the rest of the industry? I have a problem with that. I would rather see our people compensated the same way that we've compensated them for a long time. We've kept a high morale here. We've kept a situation where we don't have that much turnover. And I don't want to see a negative implication on the decision we make as a board that freezes anybody's salary because they're in a higher percentile than the normal industry standards. How can we get around that?
That's strictly a board decision. I mean, once, we have all the data here, okay? And in evaluating the different classifications, you're gonna see employees that are, their percentiles are way up there. And, like you said, Dale, this agency in the past has always wanted to be a step above. And with our compensation to the employees, they're our greatest asset, and we need to protect them and their livelihoods. And when you get those people, when you get the people above, it's like you said, I mean, what are you gonna do, not give them a COLA, and the rest of them are getting COLA?
That's what I was,
Okay, that's a board decision, and that's a decision that we here make. We've never done that before, whether we do it, whether you wanna do that to make, get everybody within the median, that's our decision as a board. But, I don't hear any, feedback on that.
I got some feedback on it,
Okay.
Lane. When you talk about taking and getting everybody in the median, that means bringing our employees to the 50 percentile of the survey. And I just can't go along with that concept. I think that in order to keep morale, in order to keep employees' incentive high and their morale high, I think that it's up to us to figure out a way where we can compensate our employees and not decompensate our employees to be equal to some of the other agencies that's been surveyed. However, the category or the few positions that are paid below, and I think we ought to bring those people up. But I do not think that it's a good idea for this board to sit back and freeze anybody's wages because they are making more money than the average Joe at a comparable position. And we've got to be able to get around this.
So,
Isn't that partly LaRue's job also?
Well,
our decision.
it's the board decision,
We'll
John.
pass it on to the.
Yeah, you don't pass it on to the general manager.
Yeah.
No, but the thing, but by your classification, so we have somebody that's, 30% up, way up
Yeah.
there. The thing is, we've identified it.
Right.
Okay, that person's in that position already. If that position becomes, a person retires or leaves the district and it comes to a new hiring standard, which, we have the data to look at that position and fill it at a different salary range than what it currently would be. And that's the information that's valuable that we're getting from this.
Right.
Correct.
Okay?
So a couple of comments tearing off of Dale's. In my mind, when it comes to compensation, total compensation for employees, I fully agree, we want to be competitive in the labor market, and we want to be able to recruit and retain employees and have a compensation scale that accomplishes that. we've got a concurrent responsibility to our taxpayers and our ratepayers to pay fair wages, but not exorbitant wages for the services that they're paying for. Ultimately, we're not paying for it. So when you get into this topic of if we have positions that are significantly above market, I think it comes down to what Lane said a moment ago. When we, at a future board meeting, when we're deciding how to implement the recommendations that we ultimately agree to out of this class and comp study, we will have a decision to make for, if you've got, so if we end up adopting a salary range of between, if we say an administrative support person, salary range is between $25 and $40 an hour, and we've got an existing person that's making $50 an hour, we'll have a decision to make on, is that existing person going to continue to get COLA even though they're outside of that range we've just adopted, or not? And so recognizing that another person sitting right next to them that maybe was hired later, coming into that range, is going to cap out at 40, right? They're going to be able to get raises in COLA. The other person would still be able to get COLA. Is that fair or not? That's a legitimate conversation. I don't think that's the conversation for today's board meeting.
Correct.
And I don't need a decision on that to
Right.
do what I need to do in the next steps. I mean, I realize there's still a lot of data and you might want longer to look at it, but that's something that can be decided before you're ready to implement it. You know, even at the next meeting, if you were to accept the study, I don't know that that means you're gonna implement it the next day.
Right.
Yeah, General Manager Griffin?
Yeah, Bryce Consulting, to finish their scope, they need to have this direction from the board. Complete the study, present it to the board can accept the study. Doesn't mean they have to implement everything into it. She's not going to provide direction on how to implement it. She's just going to finish up what the scope was, which was to do the job descriptions, provide recommendations, then we can accept the study, and then at the subsequent meetings, then we can have a discussion on how we want to implement. How you want to start dealing with Y-rated employees, other topics you brought up, Dale. But we need, in my opinion, have to continue this, conclude the classification compensation study, and then deal with the implementation of it.
Right. So one item that Shelley brought up that may be an easy one for us is the fact that we've got, for different positions, there's different ranges in the salary. That's kind of odd, I think, for public agencies, but I think it's more common that, you know, you've got a low end and a high end of the salary range, and it's, you know, there's a 25% spread or a 30% spread or a 35% spread, and that's consistent. The spread, percentage-based spread, is consistent across positions. It's surprising that we don't have that. I'm not sure how that materialized over time, and it doesn't really matter, but I do agree that getting to a consistent spread makes sense in terms of the final recommendations that come back to us. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
Board?
Yeah, I think generally that's what I've seen out there, and it'd be good to clean that up. Yeah, I don't see that there's a downside to doing that, at least not one that readily jumps into my mind.
Right.
Okay. Well, we have go ahead.
I've still got some other questions. Shoot, where was that? The question, well, one of the things I noted was, you know, and again, there's a lot of data I haven't really analyzed, but there seemed to be a trend where I would say sort of more of the entry-level positions, the admin assistants, the operators, tended to be compensated higher than the management level positions. And so is it a practice out there, and you know, with the high cost of living that we have, you know, $1 for somebody who's, you know, just making it and being able to pay rent and all that makes a bigger difference than, say, someone who's at a higher management level position? And is it often, do you see that disparity? And, you know, when a board sets a target for, you know, staff, is there sometimes a disparity between, you know, the rank and file or the entry-level folks and management, or is it typically applied across the whole board?
You know, I think that how yours got like that, I'm not sure, but what I've seen in other organizations is that, especially if their rank and file staff are unionized, then, and this could be reflective in the data, and this could be why we're seeing some of this, is that during kind of the economic downturn, they were still getting increases through their MOUs where management's unrepresented, so the agencies were able to hold off on increases. And now we're starting to see the catch-ups for, you know, if we looked back 5-6 years ago, you know, we would see that those classifications that were unionized had, you know, 4 or 5 year long contracts, so they kept getting their increases where the management just were frozen. Now we've seen in the past couple of years, management salaries really picking up to kind of make up for, and so that could be some of it, is that, you know, maybe yours were kind of held, I don't know, and then some of the market, they're having bigger increases to catch up for things that maybe weren't done because of their collective bargaining agreements that were done for the others. So that's what I've seen in some of my clients where the management's unrepresented. I don't know if that's the case and that's really what's happening, but typically what I see is when an organization does studies, they're not doing anything different for management than they are for their rank and file. People are set to whatever market position that they chose to be set at, and that's the way that it is. And, you know, it's not like management's gonna get less of an increase than the rank and file if they're behind market. So I think some of it might still be just kind of coming out of that and agencies trying to catch up, could be.
Another question. So it was a total compensation study, and the percentiles here have to do with total compensation, salary, other, you know, pension, health benefits, vision, deferred comp, all these things. And yet we're looking to make it, you know, trying to, you know, potentially develop a policy of where we want to be ranked, and that's all going to be corrected solely through salary. But when you look at the data, there's big dollars spent in benefit programs, and, you know, if there's, how often do you take a total comp study and just you end up adjusting it there? You know, there's opportunities perhaps, you know, that are of, you know, less impact that, you know, and I'll just throw something out, and, you know, for staff, this is just me throwing ideas out. I mean, if I look at the health plan the district has, the agency has, and if there was an adjustment from the 90-10 plan that I believe we're at to an 80-20 plan, there's opportunities to save money, possibly with, you know, minimal real impacts that could then keep, you know, overall, you could make up for that with not reductions in salary. And so how often in a study like this are, you know, we've looked at total compensation, yet it looks like we're only looking at salary as a way of reconciling and correcting it, whereas there's other opportunities that perhaps provide, you know, less impact and greater value to the district to adjust things than
That's part of
than
That's
salary.
part of labor negotiations, not part of labor, not part of this study. I mean,
Right, but I mean, we
because-
had the whole thing looked at, and I
Right.
mean, if we're gonna, you know, if there are opportunities there to discuss that,
Right.
instead of just adjusting salary, you know, and there's, you know, and staff is like, yeah, we'd rather get, you know, $400 more a month and, you know, have an 80-20 plan that costs the district $400 less. It does the same thing in terms of adjusting
compensation.
where we're at in the rankings. You know, why would we instantly, you know, adjust salaries and not look at other opportunities to, you know, get us to the spot we're looking at?
Right. But what we're looking at here is, let's focus on completing this study here, and getting the data. You know, we're here as a board to make the determination of what we're gonna do with this information and what else we need right now. And then, what I'm hearing is we've got a lot of information here present. You wanna have an ad hoc committee and, report back to the board at the next board meeting?
I certainly don't feel like I'm ready to, you know, that I understand the data well enough to, you know, and the ramifications of what it's all gonna do and all that. I mean, I know conceptually I want to provide, give a recommendation to set a salary scale that, is competitive and, allows us to recruit and retain employees, but what that is exactly, I don't know. I'm not ready to, nail down, it should be the complete list of comparator agencies versus the other, or what that number should be. I'd be prepared to accept the data so that, say, good job, we now have the data to work with, but more time to look at the data and to deliberate over
What we're gonna do with it.
what we're gonna do with it,
Yeah. That's the rest of it.
So I think what you were hoping to get, Shelley and LaRue, out of this meeting was for us as a board, because we've raised a lot of topics associated with implementation of a classification and compensation study that are in our policy wheelhouse that we're going to need to be dealing with. I think the question Blake's bringing up is, wanting to see kind of as much of that total package. I mean, what we've been going through is an incremental kind of process as this study develops, making singular decisions that hopefully lead to a good final product. There's probably a half a dozen different things we've talked about today in terms of future implementation and how one thing affects another, which are all legitimate. I think the reason this is in front of us is normally you would not have looked at 3 different data sets.
Correct.
Normally, the decision on the data set would have been made 2 or 3 months ago. It would say, okay, here's the comparable agencies, and we wouldn't have had comparable agency group A, group B, and group C. We asked for that, you provided it. You're saying, okay, now here's this information. In order for me to go forward, it's going to be hugely inefficient to create a draft compensation package based on group A at the 50th percentile and group B at the group A at the 75th percentile, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's the threshold question that you were hoping to get answered from us. On that topic, when you had come up with the recommendation for the comparable agencies for us, I think it was looking at what you believe to be our kind of competitive market, agencies here, on the Hill, agencies in Reno, Sacramento Valley, kind of in the area where we would most likely be drawing future employees from. With the goal being that we wanted to know what those agencies paid so that we could set a compensation level that's going to be competitive. And it's up to us to define is competitive median, is competitive 75% above, et cetera. I think the employees said, hey, we would like you to add some Bay Area agencies into the mix as well. We as a board said, okay, we'll look at that, but we're reserving judgment as to how we're going to use that information. So and I've heard Dale in the past say that the agency's philosophy has been to be at approximately the 75th percentile. And so where my head's at is if we're looking at the Bryce agencies, I'll call let's just call them here, as the group of comparables, I'd be more inclined to look at a 75th percentile type mark in terms of basing our salaries around that. If we're looking at the comparable agencies that includes a number of entities in the Bay Area, I'd be more inclined to look at a median point as the mark that we would set our salaries to. So I think ultimately that's what you were hoping to get an answer to today.
Correct.
I'm not sure if we're going to get there, but just in concept, I think if we're going to go with one data set, my opinion is different in terms of what the percentile is that we're marking to than if we're going with a different data set.
Yeah, and I think, part of the discussion was, because some of the agencies that I recommended obviously included some local agencies, but some down the hill that's gonna have a lower cost of living than what you're gonna have in Truckee. So the way that you adjust for that is to adjust your labor market position. As soon as we start bringing in Bay Area agencies, in particular, Dublin, San Ramon, and Central Contra Costa, I mean, they pay their journey level IT position more than you pay your managers. So that's gonna, they're outliers. And so, that's kind of bringing it to more of a level playing field, if not flipping it a little bit. And so you may want to adjust your labor market position if you include those agencies. So that's really the only good way to adjust for cost of living, is to adjust that labor market position. And until you figure out who you're gonna compare to, it's tough to do that.
Right.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things in that formula, like cost of gas
Sure.
and taxes
Right.
in that particular county,
Correct.
which would have, now, does that come into your formula or not?
It's not gonna come into this formula, but when we look at cost of living, for example, Dublin has a 37% higher cost of living than Truckee does.
Yeah.
Yes, we have some agencies that have a 10% lower, but if we're talking about adjusting your labor market position up to account for those, when we throw in a couple of those large Bay Area agencies, if you go through the data, they're really outliers. They're paying much, much more. Some of it is because of the cost of living, some of it is because of the size of those organizations. They're just big.
Yeah.
And then just another comment, because really there's three sets of data. There's member agency survey information, there's the full group, which includes the Bay Area agencies, and then there's a smaller group that doesn't have the Bay Area agencies. It seems to me that the member agency data, it's interesting and useful information, but because there's so few positions that we've got data for, that doesn't give a good basis to set salaries, because we've got 2/3 of the surveyed positions where it's insufficient data to develop the data set. So it doesn't make sense to me to just use member agencies as the benchmark.
No.
Then it comes down to the other two. And again, I stated my opinion earlier, I think if we're gonna go with the group that has the higher, with the Bay Area agencies in it, then from my perspective, our market point is different than the group that's
You're saying
close to
50
by.
percentile with the Bay Area groups and 75 percentile with the local groups.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to know how those numbers compare. I suspect they're, I'd be curious to know but I don't wanna prolong the data churn here either.
Right, we need to make
Yeah,
some
it could
decisions.
skew it.
Well, we did run the 75th percentile for both of those scenarios. Do we have, because we thought it might come up. So we do have it. I didn't run, so you already have the 50th percentile.
Yeah, it's right here.
It's there. So we did run the 75th for those different groups as well. So we can look at it if you want to.
At the town, they had a very similar interest as what Dale articulated, of wanting to ultimately attract and retain high-quality employees over time. I think what they did is they used the labor market, used a 25% range and kind of bench the top of the range.
Correct.
So what it did is it set the bottom of the range at the median, but it set the top of the range at what probably ends up being a 75 or an 80th percentile in terms of the top of range. So instead of a 25% range, you end up with a 35% range, with the top being above the median, with the goal being to create more upside, more opportunities for people to continue to get raises, as opposed to a narrower spread where you come in higher from the beginning. There's different ways, I think, to accomplish what we're all saying is a goal up here.
So what this is a 75th percentile for the agencies that I recommended. And then you already have the 50th percentile for the complete set of agencies. So what this is the base, so your first column is just on base pay. So we have the survey classes. The next one is your maximum of the salary range. Then the 75th percentile of the labor market, their maximum. and then the percentage you're above or below. And then the total cash, which is the, it's in there, it's the base pay, the PERS pickup, it has deferred comp in there. Has education and certification pay in there. So then you have your total cash, the 75th percentile, and the percentage above or below.
So do we have this information in the same, we don't have it quite in the same format?
Yeah, what you have is, I don't know why this is a little bit, you have so the total comp is the last three columns. So the last three columns are the total compensation, which would go along with that other summary that you had.
And again, this is against just
This
the
is-
agencies you recommended, not,
Correct. Correct.
all right.
So this is the 75th percentile for the agencies that I recommended. You already have the 50th percentile for the complete set of agencies. So then we have your, the total compensation numbers, which are the last few columns. So, basically you can see that, with the first classification, that's the accounting technician, if we did the labor market median, you're 34% above, and if we did the 75th percentile, you're 26. So anything that's over market is going to be less
Right.
over market, and anything under market is going to be further under market. But it definitely helps with those classifications, with the bulk of them being over.
So if we set a 75th percentile top step salary, just doing the numbers, the number of positions here that already exceed that at their top step on the district salary scale are 14 out of the 24 classifications. Okay.
I didn't count them, but
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
just
that
I
you're
just did
correct.
that. Yeah, it's like 14 out of 24 already
Already there.
are above the 75th percentile currently.
Yeah, and if you look at, the median for the agencies I recommended, we said that you were 18% over market. If I take the average, I'm sorry, you were, 18, almost 19% over market. If I take the average now using the 75th percentile, you're 12% over market. So it changes overall, it's gonna change the classes individually, but if I look at the overall average, it changes it
Right,
by about
right.
6% basically.
Right, so that overall average of 12% over market as compared to
Almost 19.
as compared to 19, but that also is compared to, if you look at the complete list, the median point of the complete list, so
Right, is
9%
14.
over market,
Correct.
the 75th percentile of the Bryce list would put us at 12% over market.
Correct.
So those are close.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the difference is what it does, the thing that, you're right, there's not that big of a difference when we look at the overall between the agencies I recommended and the complete list. When we look at it overall, the things that worry me are those individual classifications when you have those couple outliers
Right.
where they're being paid more than your managers.
Right.
That's what kind of worries me when I look at that. Because that's gonna impact individual classes pretty significantly. And honestly, what ends up happening is you have one class that has matches for Dublin, San Ramon, and Central Contra Costa, and they're getting the benefit of their high salaries.
Right.
We have another class that maybe doesn't have matches for both of them. They're not getting the benefit of those high payers, and to me, that's unfair.
I don't see that, the 75 percentile, doesn't impact us that much, with this.
To go with Bryce
yeah.
agencies,
Yeah.
75th percentile.
Yeah, I see it. The impact's not that great. There's a couple management positions that, there's severely, that are under, but, the relative range here is good for where we are right now.
Can you take a second?
Yeah.
And go over the sheets and stuff?
Sure.
If you could just take a second to go over the sheet.
Sure.
Staff hasn't seen the
Yeah,
75%.
yeah.
And we'll just kind of go through it incrementally slow. If we just take a few
Yeah,
minutes.
and
for
I
that.
just, let me type these couple columns since we're really talking about total compensation, and then.
staff see okay from that position? Tech size?
Okay, so what we have, so these are all the survey classes, so it's gonna, scroll all the way down for all the survey classes. And the total compensation number is the one we're focusing on, because that has the maximum salary plus all the benefits. So this is what, for each of the classes, this is what TTSA's total compensation is. If we run the 75th percentile, that basically says that, you're in the top quartile, right? So 75% of the agencies are gonna be lower than yours. So this is what theirs would be for the market, and then the percentage that you're either above or below, and then how many of those agencies had a comparable class. So if you were over market, you're gonna be less over market using the 75th percentile because it raised it from the median up to the 75th. If you're under market, you'll be further under market. There's still classes that are over the 75th, but this seems to be more consistent with, I'm guessing, what's been done in the past. If there's rumors that you guys have focused on the 75th, this would follow along with that you probably did use a higher statistic than the mean or the median.
Right.
Can we continue to see the other
Sure.
classifications?
Yeah. I'll scroll down. So here's kind of the next group. Yeah, there's kind of the last group that fits on there.
Well, Blake, on that, when you brought up 14 out of 24 classifications, would
Yeah.
still be over on the 75th
Right,
percentile.
the top
Yeah,
scale
correct.
is currently above that of the 75th percentile. Now, if people aren't at the top scale, they may currently fall within it, but if you adopted a top scale that met the 75th percentile, it would limit the growth that they would have versus what they have now.
So that's a question. So the numbers we see in here, are these top of range?
Correct.
Okay.
It's the top of the range because, what we're looking for is what's the most you would have to pay for a classification to be, to be competitive.
Okay.
So it's the maximum in the healthcare, everything's up at the maximum rate. I mean, you may certainly have employees that don't take the most expensive plan, but you're obligated to pay.
I think by going, we need to adopt a percentage for Shelley to go off of. If we adopt the 75 percentile percentage here, and then we have, then we form an ad hoc committee, get the rest of the information up, and talk about implementation. And getting to, then we go into employee negotiations after this, once we have all the information up.
Yeah, it seems to me,
I mean,
Instead of a-
she's asking us for
Right.
for what percentage
right,
base salary
I
they
would-
go off of.
yeah. So just, what about a range, obviously 75th, you're not just gonna run the numbers and do it. So giving a range of, say, 65th to 85th or something like that, 10% either side of 75, to give flexibility to management to, deal with internal alignments and, other things. And then it seems to me again that you'd want to, because of the potential impact for staff, that you'd want to almost hand in hand, have a discussion in staff negotiations if there's opportunities, because we're talking about hitting that mark with total compensation, and salaries can be higher if some of the other benefits are lower, and giving them the opportunity to negotiate how they want their compensation to be. If we're just setting a policy of that, because if we set the salaries and then you enter negotiations, what happens then? Is there an incentive to, there's, you're not gonna adjust salaries,
When
are
we're
you?
adjusting, if you base it on the 75 percentile, and then we're we're talking about negotiations, with the employees here, and we want to keep them a step above. And if those 75% number is above the median, above 25% above what the median is here, then, that's where we have that. I'm looking at the statistics, that's pretty much where we have that, if not above that. And if we use that 75% number, then, and look at all these numbers, and then, when we do get into, the negotiations, do you want them to remain there? Do you want them to, anytime you look at not giving the employees a COLA, you look at losing, they're losing their, inflationary cap there. So you look at all these things. I just look at, I'm looking at it as on the private end too. I pay my employees above normal, but every single employee's been with me for 25 to 30 years, and it's well worth it to keep to keep good employees and pay them for better performance. It's just the way I am. And I think by doing the 75 percentiles, which is the basis we should go off of, and see where we're at, and then the employees will have a clear understanding of where they're at, and then we go into negotiations.
So moved.
I'll second.
When you say 75%?
The 75 percentile, I'm sorry.
Of the Bryce agencies?
On this one right here,
The one
which
that was
is
just passed out.
the one you just passed out,
Got it.
because that's not gonna, the impacts, on, there's gonna be zero impacts on the 14, but on the other, on a few other positions, there's gonna be impacts.
So you're suggesting that we say, that we go with the agencies that Shelley had recommended as
Right.
the market survey point, and that we set our top of range at the 75th percentile of that. And I think what I heard Blake say was that
One
there's
in the mix.
recognition that there's gonna be some internal parity things. It's not a strict mathematical
Right.
exercise. There's some fine tuning that can be done, and that we're okay with that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay?
And there was always fine tuning. I don't know that anyone ever implements it
Right.
exactly as I recommended.
Right.
Dale, what do you got?
Have you guys thought that there's a possibility that we're overanalyzing this?
You got numbers coming out of your ears right now, don't you?
Yeah, you bet. And I think that if you get right down to the basics, the basics is this. We take care of our employees. We don't want them jumping ship. We want to educate them, we want to keep them. And the only way we can do that is to pay them a little bit better than what everybody else does. And I think that 75th percentile that we've been moving along with for the last 2 decades that I've been here works. We haven't had a lot of people jump ship. We haven't had a lot of people complain about being underpaid. I think that we ought to focus on the 75th percentile, let Shelley do her work, and if we have to negotiate some of the benefit packages that go along with it, you're right, Blake, maybe some of the employees would rather have an 80-20 than a 90-10.
Get more
Because they're
take-home money.
younger people, they're healthier, they would rather see the money on their paycheck. And if we can accomplish that, then we're winning here. And the employees are winning. So,
As I say,
let's not overcomplicate things. I think we're on the right track. I think the 75th percentile accomplishes what our goals are as an agency. And if we weren't doing a good job at what we're doing, we would have a lot of people complaining about being underpaid. We'd be losing employees. We would be having internal problems that make our job tough.
Go ahead, Blake.
Dale, I agree, but I just want to make sure you understand. I mean, you say we've been doing the 75th percentile, it's going well, that's generous.
We
You know,
haven't- we-
14 out of 24 of them, of the
Above
classifications out here, over 50% of the staff are above that right now. So we're actually talking about, you know, we've been, you know, management, we've elected a wage scale, a compensation policy that's, you know, and for many of these staff, you know, you look at the comparators within the Bryce ones, they're at the 100th percentile. And so there's a consequence to what you're saying. It's not like this is steady as the ship goes. This is a recognition that we're, you know,
And I
we are
think,
working. If it was from scratch, I think 75th percentile is, you know,
I
a generous
think, Blake,
number.
I think Blake and the rest of the board members, we can justify what we pay our people. We don't have a run-of-the-mill operation going here. We've got a state-of-the-art operation that is on the cutting edge. And we have to step up. And I just, we can justify what we pay our people. If we have somebody coming up to this board meeting and they're standing in front of us, pointing their fingers at us and say, you guys are wasting taxpayers' money because you're overpaying your people. We've never, ever had that happen. Ever.
I haven't had it at the board
Well,
meeting, but
this
I've had it
isn't
happen.
that open information.
There was one letter on our,
I think there's one, yeah,
Taxes.
there's one letter on the taxes, and I think, Dan, you made a comment earlier, I mean, our fiduciary responsibilities to the taxpayer also, and that's in the justification that they're getting their, for every
Money's
dollar
worth,
put,
yeah.
they're getting their money's worth, and I justify it by the exemplary work of the employees
So-
in keeping them in their spots is well worth that. That's how I justify it to our ratepayers.
so does it make sense to, you know, say we adopt the motion? Do we hand it off to management, supported by consultant, to develop it and come up with the recommendations? Or do we want, does, you know, management and the consultant need an ad hoc committee
You
to
need
kind of
feedback from the board.
participate and
Yeah.
kind of provide feedback, you know, from a board perspective on some of these issues, so that, you know, when it comes back to the board, you know, there's maybe been some board perspective. on it.
Let's do this, let's do it and have it come back on the 75th percentile. Let's, prior to the next board meeting, have an ad hoc committee, and volunteers here. Blake, you have,
I'd be willing to do
we're
that.
willing to do it. Dan?
I could do it.
Okay.
Nobody else
Dale,
passes
do you
on
wanna
the
do it?
topic, but he's got
Yeah,
to-
go
Gotta
ahead.
be kidding
All right,
me.
so Dan, okay, purpose of the ad hoc is to make a report back to the board on these findings that were on the 75th percentile that we get back on that information and make a recommendation to the board.
So, if we proceed with the 75 percentile with the Bryce, with the price list, Shelley's gonna go back, lead her study, make recommendations, and the ad hoc committee is to
Review those recommendations
And to
report the
also
findings to the board.
help, you know, possibly make recommendations to deal with these sort of
Inequities.
board level, you know, decisions she talked earlier about, in terms of, you know, what are we gonna do with the folks that are already above, you know, the potential salary scale, and
So the intent is to have the ad hoc work in conjunction with Bryce Consulting to make a recommendation? Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, you were just gonna, this is pretty much a spreadsheet at this point. You're punching in your numbers, you're making your recommendations, she's gonna submit them to us, and then it's up to the agency to implement, to choose to implement or not implement her recommendations. If we're bringing an ad hoc committee in, are you asking or expecting that the ad hoc committee provide input on her recommendations?
Absolutely. And then that ad hoc committee reports back to the board.
yeah, I mean, we said it's not just a matter of crunching numbers, there's
Right.
some art to it, and, you know, and so you'd have some, the board input, and also, you know, there are other issues,
So, So I'm curious from Shelley's perspective, because you've done a lot of this. So to give a direction on the 75th percentile of the agencies that you previously recommended, you would do the math. And then, my experience with these is it's a bit of an iterative process. You do the math, you submit that information to management. Management looks at it, looks at some of these kind of outlier and kind of figures out where the smoothing issues need to happen. And then there's like a consultation process between you and management on that. In that, I'll call it the smoothing process. Is that what you're thinking a couple of board members should be involved with, Blake, or are you comfortable with that between Shelley and management to kind of work through that smoothing, I'll call it, with a couple of board members kind of maybe being aware that that's going on, but not being overly involved?
Right.
And then also thinking about some of these other cascading decisions that will come out of this, so that when it comes back to the board, we can identify, hey, board, here's the data back, here's how the math was, here's some of the smoothing that was done, and here's why, and then here's the list of issues that are next to deal with in terms of implementation. Is that what you're thinking the role of the ad hoc committee would be, just to kind of help at that level as
Yes.
opposed to being in the details of the study?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that there can be hopefully clean, facilitate action at the next
Right.
board meeting.
Yes, that's what we want to do.
Does that seem?
Yeah, I mean, when I've worked with ad hoc committees of a board, typically it's more of an opportunity for a few board members to have longer discussions and raise questions that they might have, so then they can report back to the rest of the board members that they feel they've been able to dig in a little bit more
Right.
deeper, and, so that it's not all happening and taking up a 4-hour board meeting kind of thing, so, yeah.
Dale?
Shelley, thank you for doing a great job. The numbers are a little bit overwhelming for me, but that's okay. But let me ask you this, Shelley. Is it unusual for an organization like ours to ask for participation at the 75th percentile?
It's not. For special districts, it's not uncommon to target the 75th percentile, and the reason why is because you have very technical classes. There's a lot of money that you spend on training and getting people certified, and it's very costly to do that and then to turn around and leave them, or have them leave your organization. So it's not unusual to do that as a way to keep them. I think also, as the certifications get higher, your candidate pool gets smaller, so you have to pay more to entice them to leave their organization. A few percentage more isn't going to bring them here.
Okay.
So it's not unusual.
Okay, thank
If
you.
you were a county, I would have a different answer for you, but you're not.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we have direction. Okay. All right, let's go, let's close that.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley, for your report. And let's go, we gotta go back.
Why, if we do the organization chart salary schedule staff tonight,
Okay, organization, okay, let's go down to item 7, approval of organization chart, salary schedule for fiscal 2019-20. Okay. Is there any input from staff on this regarding what you heard? Okay. Go ahead, Vicki.
An updated organizational chart to give to each of you. Good morning again, President Lewis and Board of Directors. There was a slight change on the organizational chart, which I have provided to you, and I have also provided to the clerk for the supplemental data for the packet. Historically, in 2016, based on employee collaborations, the Board of Directors approved an annual cost of living adjustment for employees. It was a 3-year collaboration and agreement, and that has now expired. So employees have historically received a cost of living adjustment at this time of the year, and it is based off of the All Urban Consumers CPI. And this year it came out at 3.3%, and we had a calculation. Historically, we've used a calculation. The first 3% is paid at 100%. The next 3% is paid at 75%, which means the COLA for this year, if it is approved, would be 3.23%. So I have included a salary schedule as well as an organizational chart for update, requesting that the board approve the organizational chart and salary schedule for fiscal year 2019-2020.
Okay.
With regards to the organizational chart, is there any changes? I mean, I don't have the old one, so I don't, is there?
Yeah, there's 4 changes on there, so we made, oh, you'd like to see the organizational chart? Okay, so this is the updated organizational chart, updated from what's in your packet. So there are 4 changes on there. The first one is showing that the HR administrator reports directly to the general manager, which was always the case, but it did not really appear that way on the historical organizational chart. The second one is the 2 foreman positions were historically called, and Richard, you're gonna have to help me, preventative and preventative and corrective, and now they are called facilities and mechanical. And then the third change is the reporting of the inventory control specialist, which is now under the IMU supervisor and has historically been under the maintenance manager.
All righty,
Thank you.
thank you.
Just a nitpicky detail, I think some of these positions have multiple people in them.
Correct.
It would be helpful if we could just add parentheses
The
next to the
FTEs.
position title that indicates how many individuals actually exist in that position.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay.
And is there a,
It's more than one, if it's just one.
Yeah, and I guess I would state that the TTSA does not have truly approved FTE list, but we do have, of course, FTEs being full-time equivalents. We do have full-time equivalents that are hired into positions, but we don't, truly have through board action of how many FTEs we can hire. So I can put the number of FTEs that we do have. Is that what you're asking?
actual?
Okay.
Right.
And what is the significance of the coloring?
Of what?
The-
Oh, the coloring.
Yeah,
It is reporting, basically the reporting duties. So the dark position, the really dark blue positions are the managers. Generally speaking, the lighter blue positions are the supervisory type level. And then the white or very, very light colored are those that work under those individuals. And okay.
This was initially drafted, we thought it would be best just to color code so we knew who the supervisory managerial staff were, for quick reference.
The administrative assistant is a dark blue. So it's not all, the dark blue is the darker blue, and then the medium blue, they're not all supervisory, is that true?
Except for the
accounting department.
And the takeaway is, really is to follow the chart, the flow of the chart.
right.
If there are discrepancies with the colors, I apologize about that, but we need to follow the arrows and the lines, and you'll see who the reporting duties are to.
Yeah,
And
sorry about that.
Okay, well, we got here a recommendation to do what we, continue on what we did prior with the COLA increase of 3.23% for approval.
I so move.
Richard Northwoods makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Director Cox seconds it. Let's have further discussion.
So the COLA adjustment, we've had an agreement, and so we've done COLA for a number of years.
Correct.
And this would be continuing that.
Based on the same index
Based
and
on the same.
on the same percentage of the 3%.
Right. So,
Under the 2016 negotiated contract.
right.
Okay, any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, let's see what we got next here. Yeah, let's go back. Okay, let's go back. We got item 5, first item, public hearing, comment related to the board consideration of adopting a resolution of the board to adopt a report on delinquent charges and authorizing their collection on the tax roll.
Can we take a short break, short break,
You need a
Mr.
break?
President?
Okay,
I need a little help from Michelle.
okay. You good?
Should we adjourn?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's adjourn for 5 minutes and then get back. Let's go back into session here. And we got item, okay, so the public hearing for consideration adopting resolutions for the delinquent charges. Open it up for public comment. Hearing no public comment, I'll close the public comment section and go on to item 452, approval of resolution number 6, 2019, to adopt a resolution on delinquent charges and authorize their collection on the tax roll.
I so move.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go on to item 3, approval of resolution 7.
Just a follow-up question. Will we still need to do that now that we're collecting the whole delinquent thing kind of goes away except for those limited numbers of customers that we direct bill in the future, is that right?
Correct, yes. And we have implemented other means to collect money, like filing liens, to try to persuade them to pay instead of having to go to the county and stuff like
You
that.
mean those
So
government entities that don't
those
pay?
government entities, yes. But, so the idea is now that we're going to send all our direct charges to county, we should see hardly any next year, if not any at all.
Okay,
A very small ones.
good. Okay. We got approval of resolution number 7-2019 for Placer County tax roll delinquent charges.
I so move.
Got a motion? Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 4, approval of resolution number 8, 2019, delinquent charges for County of Nevada.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approval to submit certification for collection of delinquent charges at El Dorado County tax roll.
So move.
Second?
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good. All righty, thank you. Okay, let's go on to award bid for 2019 roof repair project.
President Lewis, members of the board, my name is Aaron Carlson. I'm senior engineer filling in for Jay Parker, who's out today. For the 2019 roof repair project, consists of re-roofing several critical buildings here at the plant. Staff has received one bid for the work. Upon review of the bid, staff has determined the bid has minor irregularities that were resolved. Staff recommends board award to Cinemark in the amount of $419,286. The bid amount is approximately $20,000 less than what they previously bid. When the contract is executed by the Contractor staff will have to amend the existing performance bond language to reflect a 1-year performance guarantee. Please note that this will not affect the 20-year warranty as dictated or as directed by the contract.
Okay, council, does this meet the requirement, the legal requirements of the bidding?
Yes, I concur with staff's recommendation.
Yeah,
Now, this is the one we rejected bids at the last meeting, right?
That's correct.
correct. And the other one dropped out, so we did that one. Okay.
It actually came in $20,000
Yeah, it worked out.
lower than
Well,
good.
previously.
nice job.
It worked out.
I so moved.
We got a motion to approve. Do
I'll
we have a
second.
second? Director Tresson seconds it. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval to award bid for digital scanning of sewer line project?
The 2019 digital scanning project consists of scanning schedules 1 and 2 of the Truckee River Interceptor, which comprise approximately 35,000 feet. One bid was received from ProPipe for $141,400. Staff recommends the board approve, board award ProPipe in the amount of $141,400.
Okay.
I so moved.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of task order number 32 with CH2M Hill for the 2020 Headworks Improvement Project.
The initial project parameters were for the 2020 Headworks Improvement Project, the initial parameters were to replace the mechanical bar screens. As staff worked through the design, it became apparent an effective design would need to include various upgrades to accommodate high flow scenarios and future flows. The expanded project included structural, electrical, and other civil design features. Staff met with management to advise them of the recommendations to expand the project. While staff could complete the design, it was determined other projects would have to be delayed and other work would also have to be delayed to complete this project. The result of the meeting was the recommendation to pass the design to CH2M Hill. CH2M Hill's design fee is $490,554. The engineer's construction estimate for the project is $2,640,000. Staff recommend the board approve task order number 32 as CH2M Hill for the 2020 Headworks Improvement Project in the amount not to exceed $490,544.
Boy, that's pretty high percentage based, for design work based on the, on a 2.6 project.
It is, the project, the point at which staff took it to, there's still a considerable amount that needs to be done. While the drawings seem like it is along the way, we estimate that we were probably between 30 and 40% completed with the design.
Okay.
The CH scope, though, isn't just design. It looks like it includes inspection services, services during construction, project management. So it's not just
It's
a
not,
design and then you walk away.
okay.
This is a cradle to grave support through the entire construction project, which will,
I
Okay.
so moved.
Got a motion approval. Do I have a second?
second?
Have a second. Director Wilkins seconds it. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, and then we have item 11, again, the discussion of energy use, conservation, recovery, and possible solar projects.
The board asked that we report on the progress of the SEED program, which was for essentially solar panels on our site. I reported last month that there had been minimal communication of the SEED program, and then just recently they started coming in with more communication, letting us know that they wanted to do a site visit, have a workshop in South Lake Tahoe. They're wanting to move forward rapidly on RFPs. I had to go on vacation, so I had asked that Richard fill in for the site visit as well as the this Lake Tahoe. So he'll provide an update on that.
So, morning, President Lewis and members of the board. Richard Palante, maintenance manager for the record. So on Wednesday, June 19th, we did a site visit with Chief Operating Officer. They, in the initial assessment that they did, that's provided in your board packet, you'll notice that they used our land where our disposal field is. So we conducted the site assessment, we corrected that. availability of land with them and showed them where we really want to put it, which is out on the reclaimed portion of the Tykert mining area. So after we walked that area, I'll just give you a brief summary of the write-up I did. They ranked the facilities A, B, C, A being the most favorable location. They originally ranked us a B. After doing the site visit, showing them the tie-in points and the challenges that we're going to face with utilizing the area of land that we have available, I would suspect that it's going to lower our ranking down. That was what was expressed to me. It was also expressed that the dollar amount that was referenced in the proposal, which was a $9 to $12 million range, would certainly be on the low end of that estimate cost. Some of the main reasons are with the location, is there any additional EIR work? What's the ability to use a reclaimed mining site? Access to the solar field. There's no road. They'd have to access the solar field either through Tykert or through our property, which would put them right down in the heart of the facility, which we really would not be favorable for us. So they'd have to look at building a road or working out access with Tykert. Dust fallout from the mining operation that continues. That was a concern. They felt like that would end up, the solar panels would require much more frequent cleaning because of that. The proximity to the flight path to the airport. As far as the aiming of the panels, we'd certainly put them in there, but there may be some aiming restrictions that would then impact their productivity.
Blinding pilots.
That is the concern that they have with FAA. The other concern that we had was just the environmental scenic impact with the homes that are on the hill. Even though it's in a bowl, it would be very visible for them, so we'd have to overcome that. One of the big ones is just the solar field proximity to the electrical connections. There's Liberty Utilities has a distribution line that share NV Energy distribution lines. So we now have a utility easement that we would have to cross. So that would all have to be negotiated out with the two other utilities. Storage, so they sized the facility at 5 megawatts, which would provide us 100% power. To store that much power for the off hours, as you can see, it would take up to 40 10 by 40 land seed containers. That's what they use to house the batteries in. So there's a lot of land space that would then need to be dedicated for storage if we wanted to do the storage side of things. And then the other big thing to tackle would be the tie-in with TDPUD. They allow up to 1 megawatt with net metering, but to do a 5 megawatt facility, we'd have to enter into negotiations with them. How would we do the tie-in, and what do we do with the standby charges and all those things that would come with it. And then as part of the RFP, so we did that site visit with them. That's basically what the Chief Operating Officer of Optimi came back with was, while there's some challenges here, we would now look at being a bid alternate on the RFP that was going to go out. So there would be no requirement for the companies that are interested to even bid on our site. And what became clear is it's a design build project. Walking the site with Jay, both him and I agreed, and I think I can speak for LaRue as well. We have the land, but we have a lot of challenges, so it probably make more sense to do a traditional design bid build project and bring someone in independently that has expertise dealing with this size of project. The seed projects usually really geared for those small rooftops, which worked really good at the airport that they did there at South Lake Tahoe. And those type of projects, it's really geared for those. Our size project is, they're viewing it as a multi-year project with a lot of complexity, so.
And after discussion with Richard, we feel that we can continue to move forward with solar panels for alternative energy. I just don't recommend proceeding with them. I don't think we're getting the attention that I feel we deserve, the detailed level that we're going to need to answer to. My recommendation is that we terminate the agreement, MOU with them, and then take an alternative independent action on ourselves. I've been reached out by other solar panel companies, and I can contact other agencies around here to see what other options we have. So I'm not recommending that we stop moving forward to obtain solar panels. I just feel uncomfortable proceeding with seed. Just the lack of communication and the effort that I'm seeing on my end, it does make me uncomfortable. And my recommendation is to revisit the MOU if I can get approval or direction from the agency to terminate that. I will, or bring it back at the next board meeting and ask for termination of that agreement, and then we can proceed on independently.
Good job, Lou.
Who did your solars?
We brought in a consultant who helped design it, and then we bid it out, and then just the same way you're talking. Yeah,
design.
Laura, that sounds
So
like
I'll
the
come
right
back
move.
with the next board meeting before an approval.
So what about different, okay, I imagine for different energy, you know, what we're doing with methane gas and stuff production, I mean, are we looking at that in the master plan? Okay.
We've done some preliminary stuff, and just because of the ambient temperature here, you have to, I think the payback isn't as lucrative as maybe solar, but we've kind of tasked that to CHP to perform.
Or Corolla, right?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Corolla, I apologize
Okay.
for the master plan.
All right, good. All right.
Thank you.
Continue on.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, department reports. Okay, who's up first? Go ahead, Mike.
Good morning, President Lewis, Board of Directors, Michael Peak, Operations Manager for the record. The operations report for the month of June, all plant waste discharge requirements were met for the month. Operations portion of it, we took the iron sponge out of service, inspected and replaced the media. We did additional sampling and lab testing for wastewater characterization and data collection for the master plan for Corolla. We placed a second phosphorus stripper in service to accommodate anticipated increased loadings of phosphorus. Overall, the plant performed well through the month. The laboratory report, the laboratory was able to successfully complete annual proficiency testing requirements. Staff performed necessary laboratory testing per our WDR requirements and operational needs. Additionally, lab testing for the wastewater characterization and data collection and for the master plan. They did a few extra samples for that along with the operations department, so it was kind of a collaborative effort. We've sent out I want to clarify on the last bullet, it's accreditation for the new TOC carbon, total organic carbon analyzer that we submitted, and it says it was accepted. And so far all that is that we've submitted the paperwork, and ELAP is still investigating and reviewing that to give us our accreditation so we can actually start to utilize that new instrument. So we're still not quite registered to be able to use that as a method to run TOC. We anticipate hopefully within the next few weeks. It just depends on how soon ELAP gets back to us. You can see that the monthly average daily flow was about 4.32 MGD. Monthly maximum instantaneous 6.4. 7-day average 4.8. You can see that all the suspended solids limits for average and daily max were met. Turbidity, phosphorus, and RCOD, or chemical oxygen demand, were all met and below.
How do we do over the 5th,
Yeah.
the 6th?
4th of July?
Yeah.
We actually did quite well. We had definitely increased loading and flows. The flows didn't, the highest I saw was about 8.5, which is not as high as I've seen on the 4th of July when it's on a Friday or a Monday.
Okay.
Typically, or if it's on a Saturday, we can get up to around 10 MGD. So we didn't see that, but it did seem like the event was lasted a little bit longer. So we had about 7.5 MGD on the 3rd, and then we had 8.5 on the 4th, and then the 5th, 6th, and 7th, we all, each one of those days we had pretty high flows. So the plant
performed well.
we definitely pushed it, and then we, but it did well. So.
Okay,
Great
good.
job.
Good job.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up.
Morning again, board. Richard Palante, maintenance manager. So continuing to respond to dig alerts for along TRI with the summer construction season. highlight that we supported the Squaw Cycling project with the initial video inspection for the work. It's not on my report, but we also made a site visit out there. A very interesting project, so thanks for recommending that, Director Cox. We attended the CE program site visit and workshop. For the month, we had a pretty slow month on corrective work orders. Let us knock out all the preventative maintenance and really focus on some of the projects that we have going on, which was a RAS VFD replacements, replacing 3 outdated drives with new drives in there, just in time for the high flows for 4th of July. We completed the installation of the nitrification blower install, so it's been started up and is running. Just working out through some of the bugs on it and getting temperature readings and working with the process engineer to verify we got a product that's going to give us a long life. We conducted a Lucity GIS coordination meeting with Ames and got some of the questions answered there on how we're going to integrate those 2 softwares. Back on the Camus boiler installation project for the heating boiler for the administration building, additional parts came in, which let us get back on that. Some other projects, some door replacement projects throughout the facility, and we had some roots and some debris in the TRI line that we started off with attempting to clean, and we'll be back out there again this month to wrap that up.
Thank you, Richard. Any
I have a
questions?
question.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of trailers right there at Squaw Creek with long pieces of pipe that are not that big around. Is that part of that crossing, or where are they gonna do the crossing?
That's a drill rod for the
Oh, okay.
boring machine that you see on the trailer, and that is part of their process for getting underneath the highway and underneath the river.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Richard. Aaron?
Aaron Carlson, Senior Engineer. Engineering report, so the 2019 plant concrete repair project contractor has started work. Currently he's ahead of schedule. For the 2019 roof repair project, with board's approval, contractor should start beginning of August. Headworks improvement project, with the board's approval, CH2M Hill will take over the design. The administration building office remodel project, staff is currently working with CNW to get the project ready for construction. The 2019 digital scanning, with the board's approval, work should start in the beginning of September for that project. The multi-use digester pump, staff is completing the design and the contract documents. The master sewer plant, staff is assisting Corlo as needed. The Squaw Valley Public District Truckee River Siphon project, staff is working with Squaw Valley Public District to complete the project. The Truckee River Bridge project, or Fanny Bridge, work is ongoing with that. And for project planning meetings, staff has assisted in review of the construction documents for the Avery Hotel.
All right.
Good question.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Avery Hotel, they owe us any money?
I'll take it. We are watching and monitoring that, so no, to answer your question, they don't owe us any money. They are getting
Okay.
close to the 20% requirement. I've let them be informed that we're approaching that, and I would suspect that we're going to be within that 20% or close to it at the end of this month.
Does that mean they're gonna pay, or does that mean they're gonna owe?
That means that we have 20% remaining balance, so any work that has been worked and has been accumulated, that should cover it. If there is no further deposited monies, there will be no further work performed by us or our consultants.
Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be drawing off a reserve,
It's the deposit.
a deposit.
Yeah, but we did state in the contract that when it gets down to 20% balance of that deposit, that they need to replenish it, and if not, then we
Stop.
can cease work, correct?
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, Aaron.
Any other questions? Great. Come on, Bob.
President Lewis, directors, our automation systems and our computer systems for this month have been working very well. The IT department has been working on the following projects in the past month. First, the I&E department has begun the installation of a new flavor of drives for our RAS pumps on side one. We've been able to get 2 of these pumps fully integrated into our SCADA system, and they are running in auto smoothly. Secondly, on the software and web side of things, we are in the process of moving our legacy operations logging system which has been in service since 2002, onto our new, more modern plant information system, which will provide a much more streamlined way for operations to access the web portal and to generate log entries and things like that. We've also been developing a safety documentation web portal, starting with our job hazard analysis forms. This will integrate in with duties of our operations and maintenance crews, which will provide for a simple way of generating, assigning job tasks and employees, and recording and storing, and not to mention the removal of using reams of paper for these things. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Bob. Okay, let's go general manager's report. Oh, Rochelle, sorry.
How could you forget?
I know.
My handler.
And yours here soon, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
Good morning, gentlemen. So the accounting department has been busy working on budgets. We do have, we have been working on the prelim budgets, and we'll have supply more final detailed information for Lou to complete the budgets to present in August. And we have already started the coordination with our auditors. They were here last month, and we're continuing to send them documentation via email to complete that. Billing and customer service. Billing department has been busy with our new direct billing and preparing the Cindy County reports, which you approved to be completed today. And purchasing has been busy with the engineering department and all the others approving and helping process a lot of these contracts out to the contractors. And we have between all the departments, been coordinating with Cassell quite a bit. We're moving pretty fast. They are proposing September as a live date, so I think we're looking more September, October, with the challenges of audit in between there. We have a lot to do, so September, October, we could be live with all those processes, but I can keep you abreast of that project. Other than that, all standard business as usual.
Good. Any questions of Rochelle here? Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you.
Oh, and final note, there is a second page. I didn't have the data from all the new permitting, and there is a new section in the spreadsheets, the very next page to my report, that has all that detailed information.
I got one question. With regards to the billing that goes on the tax rolls, how many government agencies do you have to bill now? Direct.
I'll have to break it out for you. It's not
I mean,
as
is
many
it
as
30,
you
40,
think.
100?
More like 100.
Okay.
Well, between the state parks, maybe less than 100, state parks, government agencies, and Union Pacific,
Okay.
those type of things. But I can get you an actual count.
Yeah, just interesting. Did you have a question?
Well, just a comment on the connection fee, and, we adopted the new scaled fee, and it looks like we're averaging so far this year a little over $6,000 per residential unit versus the old 5,000. So far, the ones that have come in have been larger than 2,000 square feet, but I think we're gonna start seeing some smaller ones here. We see that in the pipe, so it'll be interesting to see how that number fluctuates over time, whether we end up at the end of the year less or more than 5,000, or whether we got it close. Yeah.
We'll keep
Thanks.
track of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle.
All righty. LaRue, General Manager's report.
I have nothing in addition to add, other than the fact that we did have a staff meeting yesterday to go over the data that we presented to in the compensation and classification study with staff. I thought that was beneficial. And next month I will be returning with a financial budget for the agency.
Okay, let's adjourn and go into closed session at this point.
Board director.
Oh, Board of Directors comments, yeah. Sorry. Any board comment?
No.
Hearing none. Well, let's adjourn into closed session. Okay, we're ready to go back into open session here, and we have item 9 here on the agenda. Consideration of money damages claim filed by Philip Fay relating to the alleged retaliation.
So,
As we discussed in closed session, staff recommends that the board disapprove and reject the claim as premature and untimely.
Okay?
make that motion.
Director Wilkins makes that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Director Northrup seconds it. Any further discussion, board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. And we shall adjourn this meeting.